Welcome back. Today I will be reacting to another video by abaandpreach, and this one is titled Women Shouldn't Be Allowed to Vote or Have Birth Control.
If this was Pearl's world, I'd get rid of birth control, I'd ban it, but that'll never happen. I think that's the root of all evil. And I'd actually go for the root of all evil.
The root of all evil. That's what she said. Okay, my girl.
Say it. I don't think women should vote.
Huh?
I don't think women should vote. I don't think women vote.
Lord Jesus, keep on going.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear her reasoning for why women shouldn't be allowed to have birth control or the right to vote.
Yeah,
No, women, you can't vote. No birth control. Keep it going.
Yeah, because it's always freedom without responsibility. And
I
so,
love
like,
it.
the
Women
reason
should not
No,
vote.
but
Pearly said it herself.
I'll tell you why, though. I'll tell you why. Because it's freedom without responsibility.
Sorry, I have to look her up. Does she have a YouTube? Okay, so let's look at the title of her videos and thumbnails. I think that will give us context as to what her mission is as a content creator. So the latest video she has posted is titled Modern Women Says Body Count Don't Matter. Modern women think too highly of themselves. Modern women are guilty of this. Modern women fail in dating. Modern women know nothing about relation dynamics. Are modern women worth the wait? Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I know what I'm dealing with now. I think she's created a niche for herself where her role is to tell lonely, bitter men what they want to hear. I'm scrolling through, yeah, I think she's a grifter. It looks like she's basically built a platform to reinforce the worst stereotypes about women, that they fail to take accountability, that they use sex as a mechanism to manipulate men, that they're stupid and don't know what's best for them, that they think way too highly of themselves, which is true for some women, but not for the overwhelming majority. On top of that, these criticisms can be aimed at men as well, but it doesn't look like her platform is designed to shed light on that nuance and hold both genders equally accountable for their transgressions. And that is what raises my suspicion and leads me to believe that she is not honest or sincere, and that her opinions aren't really hers. They are constructed, designed, and dictated by a particular type of man who is fed up with women. Yeah, I don't think this is a good platform. I don't think she's not an honest broker, because people like this create more divisions between genders than they do bridges that we can use to better understand each other and to more effectively communicate with one another so that we both know where we're coming from. Yeah, I don't trust her platform. I think by creating a platform that reinforces men's worst beliefs about women, what she's actually doing is distorting reality for those men and making them believe that there are no good women out there, that women who are nurturing, accepting, selfless, and accommodating no longer exists. If your message is that modern women are either hoes, gold diggers, or set unrealistically high standards, then what you end up doing is giving men an excuse to remain lonely instead of positioning themselves to find the woman that's right for them. I mean, it's difficult, yes. And for some of us, it takes longer to find the right woman, but that doesn't mean she's not out there. And that doesn't mean we should just give up. But that's what this channel is encouraging guys to do, because instead of spending the time to actually position yourself to be around women and to filter through which woman is right for you and which one is not, you end up spending, I don't know, these videos are like 10, 20 minutes long. You know, you could easily end up spending 2 hours just watching these videos instead. So I don't see how she is contributing in a positive manner to the dating market. I don't see how she is building bridges between people and helping them understand each other, because it seems like a lot of these videos are purely combative, where there are intentional misunderstandings, intentional miscommunication, intentional mischaracterizations, or perhaps not mischaracterizations, but exaggerated representations of who women are and of what they want. Each woman is different, and she's going to have different standards based on where she's at in her life and what she wants out of life. But this assumption that women should be treated like 10-year-olds and should not have control over their bodies or their destinies is one that is purely outdated. It's one that you would see in a banana republic, right? In a society that is perhaps war-torn or politically unstable. That's where you would see these kinds of beliefs manifesting through policy. The belief that women shouldn't vote, the belief that women shouldn't have access to birth control.
I don't think women should vote.
Huh?
I don't think women vote.
Lord Jesus, keep on going.
She's created a platform where she's basically telling angry men what they want to hear. No, you can't do that. You can't tell people who are bitter, desperate, and hopeless what they want to hear. You have to tell them what they need to hear, which is that accountability goes both ways. Yes, there are some women in society who are gold diggers. There are some women in society who are emotionally unstable and unfit to be in a healthy relationship. There are some women in society who set their standards unrealistically high. And as a result, they end up having an overinflated ego, because ego is not the same as confidence. Confidence is rooted in self-worth. Ego is rooted in entitlement. Those two things are not the same. And there are women out there who have overinflated egos. But the answer to that is not taking away woman's right to vote or her ability to use birth control. When you get rid of something as essential as birth control, and I want y'all to understand this, women do not respond by committing themselves to a life of celibacy. What ends up happening instead is that you end up forcing millions of women into pregnancy. And you can't possibly think that forcing people into pregnancy is a moral or ethical way to conduct a civilized society. Why would you want to put people in a position where they don't have access to birth control and are forced to bear children that they don't want? You can't force a woman to be a loving, caring, and compassionate mother under those circumstances. If you take away birth control and force women into pregnancy, what you see is higher rates of postpartum depression, higher rates of emotional dissociation between the mother and her baby. And think about low-income women and how cutting off something as essential as birth control would affect them. If they end up giving birth to kids that they are not financially equipped or emotionally inclined to take care of, those kids are not going to have a high standard of living. They're just not. And you could lodge the conservative argument, which is, well, that's a problem with the household, women don't care enough about their kids. No, you're making decisions for people that ruin not only their lives, but the lives of subsequent generations. But something tells me this woman has not thought through anything that she's saying. And the voting issue is something it's just so outlandish that, what do you say to something like that? Listen, I understand that the Red Pill movement exists. And the more reaction videos I do, the more I learn about it. But there needs to be a healthy alternative that validates the suffering of men while at the same time acknowledges the suffering men inflict on society. I don't think that's too much to ask for. As a side note, I also think parents need to do a better job at stepping up and teaching their kids right from wrong instead of letting social media influencers do it for them. And that's part of the issue, which is you have this woman who's been able to build a career for herself by putting out volatile messages that ultimately place men at a greater disadvantage if they take what she says to heart. And I think that's really sad. I don't see how we could cultivate a healthy and happy society when we're looking to social media influencers for all the answers, when you have the answers. The answers are within you. And if I had to guess, I would say that living in a society full of men who think women are the problem and women who think men are the problem, that has scary consequences for everybody involved. Because what do you do when you identify someone as a problem, not as a human being with complex thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, wants, needs, not as a full human, but as a problem? You solve the problem. And for women who hate men, the solution to the problem is to gain more power and control over men. For men who hate women, the solution for them is to gain more power and control over women. Not everything has to be about gaining power and control, because as we saw with certain elements of the Me Too movement, some women did not know what to do with that control. And that led to some false accusations. Not all of them, but some of them were false. And on the other side of the spectrum, when men have full control over women, we don't know how to act either. So what we got to do is come together and talk with one another, not as an adversary, but as an ally, because that's the only way we're going to solve the divisions between men and women. Not by taking rights away from men or by taking rights away from women. That's fucking silly. And my last comment before I continue the video is this: most people just aren't fit to be parents. The fact that this world is as cold and cruel as it is, I don't think is a coincidence. I think it's a byproduct of what happens when damaged people decide to reproduce without considering whether they have the capability to teach a child how to be kind and considerate. And this is why there's so much evil in the world. We really need to take a step back and ask ourselves what kind of upbringing produces someone like Just Pearly. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm just making the observation that in order to produce the kind of content she has produced, which is divisive, politically charged, polemical, meaning it's constructed to attack a certain group, you have to ask yourself, to what degree does she struggle with pain, emptiness, and grief? Because people who are healthy and happy, people who love themselves and love others, do not create entire platforms that disseminate messages of division and hatred, which is what her platform looks like it does. But I'm not even a minute through the video.
Women, you can't vote. No birth control. Keep it going.
Yeah, no, because it's always freedom without responsibility. And
I
so,
love
like,
it.
the
Women
reason
should not
no,
vote. Pearly said it herself.
I'll tell you why, though. I'll tell you why. Because it's freedom without responsibility. And before women, like I believe in.
Oh no, you're fumbling over your words for a reason. It's because you understand that the message you just conveyed is incoherent and does not have a logical foundation. The mere act of voting is in and of itself a responsibility. When you vote, you are literally taking on a burden to choose a leader that represents you and your ideas. And these leaders are tasked with supporting the citizens' interests. So not only are you taking on a responsibility when you vote, but you are agreeing to take accountability for the decisions that your elected official makes. Sometimes I get really frustrated, not because I'm worried about numbers or about growing my channel. It'll grow at the pace that it is supposed to. So I don't worry about that too much. But when I see people who don't have the adequate training, expertise, qualifications, or skills to properly inform people about the issues that are plaguing their lives, it stresses me out. Because why would you want all that attention if your plan is to just use it to manipulate people into making decisions that are bad for them? It's frustrating.
Consequences for your decision. So the men know if they vote someone batshit crazy into power, you guys get drafted. We don't. Women decide elections. We're 55% of the population. I think if we want to vote, equally draft us. Y'all want equality. And personally, I don't want to get drafted, so I'll be in the kitchen.
Wait, hold on. I thought she was crazy. I think she has a point.
Go ahead.
She's talking about equality.
Sure.
That's just what the birth control thing. Hey, yo. But I understand where she's coming from with the drafting thing.
No, I don't understand where she's coming from with the drafting thing. I think if the people who are responsible for starting wars are mostly men, then the people who are sent to fight in those wars should be mostly men. Last time I checked, all 46 presidents of the United States are men. Most of them have waged war. So if we want to wage war, then we need to be the ones who are fighting in those wars.
2 hours later.
No, it's not because they don't. It's not because they vote and they don't get drafted that they don't suffer the consequences of. So yeah, no, I got nothing. I really tried.
Why didn't you just say women should get drafted? This whole idea of like you shouldn't get voted to get drafted.
No.
First off, when's the last?
Because that was a smokescreen for her more extremist points. Fucking grifters do it all the time. They lure you in with a reasonable claim about a particular issue, and once you agree with that claim, they pull you all the way to an extreme. So for example, conservatives will say trans women people who are biologically male should not be able to participate in women's sports. This is a reasonable assertion as far as I'm concerned, but they'll use that rational opinion as a cudgel to teach you about how the LGBT community is conspiring to turn your kids gay. You see what I'm saying? So unfortunately, abaandpreach just fell into the trap that she set, because her main point isn't that women should be drafted along with men. That's not her central thesis. Her central thesis is that women deserve less rights and freedoms than men. But you can't say that, because when you say that, you lose people. It's not persuasive. You have to bake the extremism into your rational claim. Otherwise, people are going to look at you like you're a fucking monster, which if I'm being honest, she is behaving in a monstrous way. But where I think she fucked up this time is being too honest, is being too explicit. And where I think she caught the attention of abaandpreach is that she didn't do a good enough job softening her message. So instead of saying only women who are committed to domestic chores around the house and are taking care of kids should be able to vote because they play such a vital role in shaping our country's future. Instead of saying something like that, which is still an absurd thing to say, she just wasn't tactful in the way she conveyed her message, which leads me to believe she is not super bright. She seems to have built an empire that revolves around manipulation tactics and effective propaganda, but that's different than being bright, right? Being calculated isn't the same as being smart. And just because you're calculated doesn't mean that you are safe from recklessness. Think about someone like Bernie Madoff, who was charged with stealing pensions and retirement funds on Wall Street. He was a very calculated individual, very persuasive, but he was also reckless. And so I don't know what's going to happen to her channel, but I don't know, it just sounds like she got sloppy.
A draft happened. Like what, 30, 40, 50 years? Okay, that's one. Two, you act like when people get elected to be politicians, they don't enact laws that negatively impact strictly women. What, do you think a birth control ban wouldn't affect women primarily?
No, it's not just men.
What do you think an abortion ban doesn't affect women primarily? Right? There are plenty of laws that a crazy batshit politician come in and enact that would primarily only affect women.
Dude, some states charge women a luxury tax for things like tampons, which if you ask any woman who is on her period, they will tell you being on your period does not feel like a fucking luxury. And a tampon is not a luxury item. It's an essential item. But bro, there are literally states that charge a luxury tax for that shit, right? These are laws that are created by men that affect women.
But you pulled up drafts, which is like something that rarely, if ever, happens. And then you're using that to say they should lose their right to vote. And the birth control thing was so crazy to me. It's like, argument for the birth control, I guess, is because of birth control, women can now be more selective, and so it's worse for society. So they want to remove your ability to choose. And here's a problem, okay? This girl's a really popular red pill creator, and people sent me this link because the dude in the...
Women are not going to stop fucking if you get rid of birth control. They're going to keep fucking because, like I said, we are human beings and we have natural desires and we tend to act on those desires. The only thing that's going to change is that more women are going to get pregnant by accident and be forced to bear a child that they didn't plan for, that they didn't want, and that they might not be able to cultivate an emotional connection with. That's all you do by getting rid of birth control.
And to be fair, in the interview, she was making a lot more sense than that guy was, okay? But I stopped at this part and I had to cringe so incredibly fucking hard because I don't think people realize how crazy red pill folks sound when they say stuff like this and how easy it discredits them. I think people should bring back slavery because, like, what? I think women should lose their right to vote. And I think also they should lose their right to some of the biggest invention that brought us to this current age right now. People want to just get rid of because, what? A lot of these folks enter this red pill space and
it's because they make, and I'm guessing here, but they probably make a shit ton of money by peddling messages they know will resonate with a particular demographic of men who see them as the truth bearers of society.
And they'll say like, oh, we're not misogynist, we're not anti-women, not anti-women. You should lose your right to vote and you should lose your ability to have contraceptives. What? You cannot hold on to the moniker that you guys are not misogynist, that you guys are not anti-women, and then take away some of the most basic fundamental rights to people who not only pay taxes, who not only participate in society as full-fledged adults and have to finance things. You know, like, listen, whether you like it or not, women are paying their taxes, women are involved in politics, women are helping to make these decisions, they're in managerial positions. It's not like they're here on the side. That's not the case.
And also 51% of the planet. But...
Okay? So, you sit there, you say, we're not misogynists, but people who contribute a lot to society shouldn't have the right to vote is crazy. Because I imagine, if you're really looking at it like, well, they don't contribute as much as a man, there's plenty of groups who don't contribute as much as others. Should they lose their right to participate in democracy?
Yes.
What about poor people?
Only rich people should vote.
Because they pay the most amount of taxes? Is that how it should be? Huh?
That makes sense. Old folks, women.
This is the kind of stuff that you will see that will come and discredit the red pill folks. And I'm saying this as like, forget me. Let's say a news person pulls up a media hit piece, okay, on Redpill, folks. They're gonna play this clip.
This is Pearl's world. I'd get rid of birth control. I'd ban it. I think that's the root of all evil. I don't think women should vote.
And their audience is gonna know that red pill popular people are saying dumb shit like this, and it's gonna discredit everything. This is not like a wacky take like, oh, you know, like, I feel like women should earn more than men, or men should earn more than women. It's not that. You should lose your ability to vote. Now, you may not care about voting, but understand it is one of the most fundamental freedoms that we have in the free world.
That's what it was.
You may not care for it, but it is one of the most important. It's akin to telling people you should lose free speech because you're a woman. That's how crazy it is. And if you don't understand how unhinged this messaging is, I don't think people are really listening to what it means to the average person. It's interesting because I'll say like, red pill stands for the truth. Oh, people are misunderstanding the red pill. The red pill's not misogyny. It stands for the truth. Women shouldn't be able to vote. Nigga, you are bugging. You are bugging. Play this clip to 99% of people and they'll be like, you are bugging.
Yes, but peep game.
Yeah.
In their way of thinking, that's the truth. That women do a whole bunch of crazy things without any repercussion. They just do shit. It's wild. And if they do shit and it's wild, and they vote and it's wild, to them that's the truth. And that's why they call it the truth.
Yeah, it's still misogyny.
Yes.
You can't say this is the truth, it's not misogyny,
but it's like
your truth is misogyny.
But it's
because
like
I don't even like using that word because it's so overused. It makes me cringe.
It's like
let's be honest. Yeah. If somebody comes out and say women shouldn't be able to vote for this reason, you're gonna be painted as misogynist.
Yes, it's exactly like whenever people their ultra conception of what being a racist is the dude with a little mustache. If you don't,
sure.
If you're not that, then you're not that, even though you do certain things. So people, for them to be a misogynist, you have to delete people, or having the intention of deleting people, or not wanting to have the intentions and because
I mean, taking people's voting rights away and, you know, controlling what they do with their body is not far from that conclusion. The only reason, oh man, what a controversial take. Should I save that one? Yeah, I mean, it's real and I feel it in the depths of my soul, what I wanted to say, but that might be for a different video.
Because they're not that extreme, they don't want to be painted as that.
True.
I think that's why this is happening. And they say, I'm not that. I mean, I love women.
You are.
I love women.
You gotta wear that hat. You gotta wear that hat. That's what you guys are. And not all of you, but the folks who endorsing this kind of rhetoric, yeah, that's what you are. And people ask me, yeah, but you say a lot of stuff. Listen, there's stuff that these red pillars say that is absolutely true. Uh-huh. You know, when they're talking about hypergamy and the idea that, like, you know, there's some discriminatory practices that women engage in that are absolutely hypocritical, and then they demand to be coddled all the time about their preferences or whatever. It's like, yeah, no. There are some bullshit. And we pointed out, but I would never want to associate with the label because of cringe shit like this. Right? Oh, red pill's the truth. Yes, and feminism stands for equality, but 99% of you niggas don't want to call yourselves feminists, okay? For a reason. Because you understand that even though at its root it may be that, you understand the way it manifests in the world and the way that it's marketed isn't that. Same thing with red pill. It's like, I could buy into a lot of the true things that they say, but guess what? You guys are so fucking cringe online and say so much radical dumb shit that I'm like, I would never want to associate with that kind of branding. Ever. Listen to that. And if you don't understand how crazy that sounds, again, play that clip for most people in the world and they'll be like, this bitch is crazy. And it's unfortunate because you can have a bunch of great takes, right? Like her in this podcast. She did a great job for the most part, countering what Hafiz was saying because Hafiz was lost. But if you do all of this and then in the middle of your spiel, you're like, let's bring back slavery. Sorry, you're going to lose a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to lose a lot of people. So you guys got to understand the way some of this stuff is perceived online. I know folks want me to react to the debate, but I thought this was a flashpoint for me because outside of this red pill space, the only thing that a regular person is going to care about when they watch this interview is the portion where she's saying that's her solution to a lot of problems. Women need to go to wife school. They need to lose birth control, lose their right to vote.
If that's being so, why are you on that podcast?
Who's me?
That girl. She should be talking right now. She's a woman.
She should be in the...
Shut the fuck up, lady. You're a woman, right? Start with you, kid.
That's a good contradiction he pointed out.
Don't vote. Go to the kitchen. Shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear you.
That shit was crazy, bro.
Whenever you say stuff like that, well,
Or
there's
do your podcast from the kitchen.
repercussion. And there's, consequences.
Yeah.
If you don't decide to, take account. No.
I think viewers are smart. Viewers understand to take what they can and then leave away what they don't like.
You think?
And so, I think viewers should keep it.
Okay.
I think a lot of people probably would.
I think some people, but as a teacher, I found that there is a good portion of the population that is highly impressionable. And so if you want to get across certain messages, there are particular emotional, intellectual, and cognitive levers you need to pull at different times, depending on who you're talking to and what your role is. So yesterday, for example, one of my subscribers DM'd me on Instagram and they asked, Manny, how do you handle misinformation as a teacher? And this is the answer I gave them. I'm not going to share their message to me, but I said, good question. It depends on who you are and what your role is. I might handle misinformation differently in a classroom setting than I would in a conversation with my younger siblings. The same holds true for coworkers or friends. And in the same breath, the way I tackle misinformation on YouTube is going to be different than the way I tackle it in my personal life, right? So if I'm in the classroom and someone says something wildly inaccurate, I might restate their position and ask the class what they think. Usually there's at least one individual who has a good counterpoint. From there, I usually try to pull others into the conversation, and eventually whatever crazy take was stated at the onset is usually drowned out and or aided with logic and reason. From there, I'll summarize, support, and critique the perspectives that were brought up, and then wrap them into my overall position, which usually leans on empiricism, common sense, and empathy. Right? So I'm sharing some of my secrets with y'all. Then I continue to say the Socratic way of handling misinformation in the classroom almost always works for me, and I think it gets people to dismiss, but understand and learn how to counter ridiculous positions.
Would see this clip, even folks who call themselves red pill or whatever it is, and they would look at this and be like, nah, I'm not rocking with that. And I think that's good. So I think the viewers, got to give them some credit. Most of them can finally figure this shit out. But yeah, that shit makes y'all look bad. That shit makes y'all look bad.
Yeah, but when you listen to the issue with the issue with red pill discourse is that it does act as a gateway, and the takes, like I said, exist on a spectrum where as soon as you subscribe to a particular ideology, such as red pill, or even we could say like liberalism, like you might start off at a certain point, but eventually that discourse becomes so like naturalized that you find yourself gradually shifting to one side of the extreme. Does that make sense? Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe. I know some of y'all are sick and tired of abaandpreach content. I promise I will try my best to branch out more. My only hesitation is I know that certain YouTube channels do not receive constructive feedback or criticism well. And as a small content creator, I'm especially susceptible to receiving a copyright strike from a larger YouTuber. So I'm very careful with the channels I do reactions of, because I just don't want to get a copyright strike because I disagreed with something that was said in the video and the creator took it to heart and felt like I was defaming them, But anyways, I will see y'all next time. Peace.